Greetings, my champions, and welcome to Live with Chatufa. We continue to give you updates of what is happening in the nation as we continue to pray for the nation of Zimbabwe. We believe that this is the time and the season for change. And indeed, change is coming, and change is a reality to the nation of Zimbabwe. ZANU PF has continued in its onslaught of putting pressure and suffering on the people of Zimbabwe. But the time has come finally that the freedom of the Zimbabwean people is going to be realized. The way that we see ZANU PF carrying itself is just a sign that where we are going is towards the last kicks of the dying horse. Emerson Mnangagwa'S plans to force all elected officials to attend ZANU PF School of Ideology has been revealed. And this really is quite disturbing. You can start to ask yourself what really is happening in the minds of ZANU PF and Emerson Mnangagwa. So Ziyambi is reported to have endorsed a suggestion that every elected official is supposed to be going to the School of Ideology of ZANU PF. And this is a big circus, like what Uncle Ged is saying here, that, this is a circus. Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Ziyambi, has endorsed the proposal for elected councillors and legislators to attend ZANU PF's Herbert Chitepo School of Ideology. Does that really make sense? How do you have an independent councillor or legislator or an opposition councillor or legislator being forced to go and attend is the School of Ideology of another political party? How does that work? Why does ZANU PF want to think that every human being in Zimbabwe belongs to them? It's high time that ZANU PF must understand that Zimbabweans have a right not to belong to ZANU PF. If they want to take their own councillors and legislators, nobody is going to ask them. Nobody will have a problem with them. But it is really ironic for them to want to force people that are coming from another political party to come and learn their own ideology, and which is just a rotten ideology anyway. Who would want ever to follow the ideology of ZANU PF, especially the ZANU PF that we are seeing today? I know that at one point, everyone used to belong to ZANU PF. Even myself, at one point, I belonged to ZANU PF. That was then. But then, because of the failures of ZANU PF, because of the corruption, the rotten mentality, and the disintegration in terms of ideology of ZANU PF, people have moved away from it and started to join other political parties that were coming up. So ZANU PF should never blame anyone for what is happening to them. The fact that they are not loved by anybody in Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa and ZANU PF are never supposed to be pointing a finger at anyone. This is their own doing. They have just messed up big time on their own from the time of Mugabe, especially with Mugabe refusing to go after 10 years. If Robert Mugabe had gone after 10 years and allowed another leader to have come in, he would have created a culture of respect for the rule of law, respect for the constitution, and of course, understanding that leadership comes and goes, and that culture would have been respected up to today. But the fact that the very founding father who started the independent Zimbabwe became so selfish, and those in ZANU PF failed to rebuke him and to remind him that nobody is more important than Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is more important than any individual. And for Mnangagwa to think that everyone must belong to ZANU PF or think like ZANU PF people, it is neither here nor there. And indeed, this is an issue that really needs to be resisted. Well, as of now, they could say that because we know that there is no opposition party in Zimbabwe as we stand, because the Shabangus and the Ngubes, the Triple C, is also just ZANU PF on its own. If they may take those ones to ZANU PF School of Ideology, we wouldn't mind about it. But for them to want to force any other political party that is coming or that is existing, that we know that it's a true political party, then that does not work. If everyone else who is right now called opposition in Zimbabwe would go to the School of Ideology, nobody would question them, whether it's from Linda Masarira or from Love Maduku or from whatever other political party, Nzora and the like. Nobody would ever care about it, because we know that these guys are all ZANU PF. But for them to want to make it a law, or to make it a mandatory, that everyone who is elected by the Zimbabwean people in whatever office must be forced to go to their school of ideology, that one does not work, and it will not work. And that is the thing that is going to be resisted. They can never win that issue with the Zimbabwean people. And I don't see them succeeding in this. They may say it today, because there's no one in the opposition who would stand maybe in parliament and oppose that issue, because we know that the parliament itself has been bastardized. It is all just but a ZANU PF parliament. It's a Mnangagwa thing, and it continues to endorse everything that has to do with Mnangagwa. We have seen the PVO bill being passed without any opposition, without any objections in the upper house. Just was it today or yesterday? And it is just a sign that we don't have a parliament. We just have ZANU PF people that are gathering from ZANU PF, who are only running with their own ideas and their own agendas. As for this one, Mnangagwa is losing it. I'm sure now he doesn't even know what he's doing, because this really does not make sense, and it is never going to be acceptable. I don't know what kind of an official who is going to be elected, who knows that they are not ZANU PF, who is ever going to allow or to agree to be used by ZANU PF and taken to their foolish school of ideology. I've said in the past that Chitepo was a very respected man. And for them to continue to have his name on that school of theirs, it is really an insult to the legacy of Herbert Chitepo. The man was principled. The man knew what he was doing. The man had ideologies. But as for Mnangagwa and this current ZANU PF we have today, they are far from the real agenda that the liberation war veterans went to war for. These have lost their direction totally. It is no longer ZANU PF anyway. It is just a clique of people that are thieves and that are murderers, people who are just criminals who have taken over ZANU PF and are just using that emblem and the name itself. But the truth of the matter is there's no more anything that is called ZANU PF. The original ZANU PF that started in the 1980s is no longer this ZANU PF we are seeing today. For some, they are just embarrassed to come out clearly and just mention it, that, you know what, we can't continue to believe in this ZANU PF that we have today. It's a bunch of failures, a bunch of mediocrity individuals who are never going to be bringing Zimbabwe to any good. So this is going to be an issue that we are watching to see how far it is going to go, especially when opposition parties start to be really active, because very soon it's going to be happening. Parties are going to be starting to be operative, real opposition in Zimbabwe, not what we are seeing today of the Triple C of Songezo Shamang and Washman. So we will continue to be watching how far Mnangagwa is going to get, as far as all of these crazy ideas that are happening in his skull will continue to be unfolding. Otherwise, let's continue to fight and defend Zimbabwe and fight for freedom of the Zimbabwean people. We want proper politics, a genuine politics. We want a rule of law in Zimbabwe. We want a leveled playing field in the political arena. Then Zimbabwe will begin to work. Otherwise, this is what is happening. Crazy, crazy ideas that are coming from Mnangagwa. But we will see how far he's going to get to. Otherwise, this is what it is. Just giving you updates of what is happening in the nation. Thank you so much, family, for joining me on the show. Let's meet in the upcoming shows and remain blessed.